Why do symbols from this fictional game, Warhammer 40K, keep showing up on the Ukrainian battlefield? I'll admit, this is a bit of a niche video today, but even if you don't know anything about Warhammer, don't click away just yet. I think you'll find this interesting, even if you're not a big nerd. Hey team, Wes O'Donnell here, US military veteran, and before we begin, let me establish my Warhammer credentials. This is my home office. Maybe a quarter of the books on this bookshelf are Warhammer 40K books. It's the same thing with this bookshelf out here in the hallway, and yes, I've been collecting the models for decades. Someday I'll get around to painting these Grey Knights, a branch of the Space Marine faction from 40K. Let's see, 40K, 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 40K there also. These three are 40K. Games Workshop has a lot of my money. Now, Russian soldiers are being equipped with purity seals, small Warhammer 40K inspired amulets blessed by Orthodox priests to supposedly shield them on the Ukrainian front. Yes, you heard that correctly. Tiny holy scrolls that seem plucked right from this tabletop game about humanity's distant dystopian future are now going to war in the name of Russian faith and protection. Warhammer 40,000, or 40K as it's commonly known, has a unique place in both tabletop gaming and pop culture. Launched in 1987 by the UK-based company Games Workshop, the game was originally aimed at a niche audience interested in tabletop wargaming, a mix of strategy, model building, and storytelling. But over the years, Warhammer 40K has expanded well beyond its tabletop roots to become a global cultural phenomenon, with millions of dedicated players and an entire literary genre, video games, and now even a series on Amazon Prime starring King of the Nerds Henry Cavill. In the early 1980s, Games Workshop released Warhammer Fantasy Battle, a Tolkien-esque medieval fantasy wargame with miniature armies. Warhammer Fantasy became a cult hit in the UK, establishing Games Workshop as a significant player in the niche market. By the mid-1980s, Games Workshop's designers decided to create a futuristic counterpart to Warhammer Fantasy, a gritty sci-fi universe that maintained the company's signature aesthetic of dark, hyper-detailed, and somewhat archaic design. And Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader was born in 1987. Now, I'm dating myself here, but I started playing Warhammer 40K in 1992, a short 5 years after the 40K world was invented. Warhammer 40K's setting is as bleak as it is imaginative. Set 40,000 years in the future, the game's universe is a dystopian vision where humanity is united under a massive, galaxy-spanning empire ruled by a semi-divine, eternally dying emperor. Technology is both advanced and primitive, as humanity's understanding of the very devices it wields has decayed into dogma and superstition. The Imperium of Man, as it's called, is in a perpetual state of war with various alien races and cosmic horrors. It was this grimdark tone, a term now synonymous with Warhammer 40K, that set it apart from other sci-fi of the time. Here, no one is truly good. Humanity is just as brutal, xenophobic, and flawed as its enemies. The dark themes resonated with fans who were used to the lighter, more optimistic sci-fi like Star Trek and even Star Wars. Over time, this grimdark aesthetic became a defining characteristic of 40K, with the tagline, "In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war," immortalized in gaming culture. The game itself is played using highly detailed miniature figures, which players build and paint themselves, making each army a personal work of art. Players control factions from the universe's different races, including the Imperium's iconic Space Marines, the alien Tau, the barbaric orcs, and the insidious forces of chaos, among many more. Games are played on detailed, often handcrafted battlefields with players maneuvering their forces according to rules that simulate combat in the 40K universe. In the 1990s, Games Workshop began publishing novels through their Black Library imprint, expanding on the lore and providing fans with detailed stories that delved into the politics, the characters, and the philosophical themes of the 40K universe. Most of those books are on the bookshelf in my office. The 40K fandom is a dedicated, creative, and sometimes eccentric community that celebrates the dark satire, the absurdity, and the richness of the setting. The game's themes, humanity's struggle against both external and internal threats, religious fanaticism, and the cyclical nature of war, have struck a chord, making it a lasting symbol of our fascination with dystopian futures. In a way, the game's growth mirrors the dystopian, ever-expanding nature of Russia's own empire, a universe where the only constant is, indeed, war. So what's this about Russian soldiers wearing Warhammer-inspired amulets? Well, for the uninitiated, one faction in 40K, the Space Marines, wear thick armor, each piece adorned with ritualistic seals bearing prayers and waxed symbols. In the 40K universe, these are called purity seals and take the form of prayers or litanies that are inscribed onto this paper and then stuck to the Space Marine armor. Now, thanks to Ratnik Tactical, a Russian military equipment maker, Russian soldiers get to channel their inner Space Marine as they don these surreal talismans on real-life battlefields. In a Telegram post, Ratnik declared, quote, "The best warriors of humanity applied scrolls with prayers and promises to their armor before battle. Russian soldiers are rightfully the best warriors of humanity and can also wear such scrolls into battle." End quote. Reportedly, thousands of these seals have already made their way to the front lines in Ukraine, bringing, well, hope to Russian soldiers in moments of existential dread. The amulets, inspired by Psalm 90, a psalm centered on the brevity of life, replace Warhammer's skull motifs with Christian symbols and are priced at a modest £9 each. They even come with regular and sooty versions for the aesthetically discerning Russian soldier. Military historian and blogger Chris O'Wiki, who traced the phenomenon, noted on X that these seals have been consecrated by priests at Russia's main cathedral of the armed forces in Kubinka. I hate to break it to you, Tovarish, but Warhammer purity seals aren't going to protect you from Ukrainian bullets. This cross-section of church-blessed purity seals and battle armor isn't just a Russian trend, though. Ukraine's own forces have adopted Warhammer imagery in striking ways, with one drone unit dubbed the Khorne Group after the game's evil blood god. Their leader reportedly even sits in a Warhammer gaming chair during operations, while fans online cheer on with the grisly rallying cry, "Blood for the blood god." Social media has been quick to spot both Russian and Ukrainian soldiers dressed in Warhammer garb and flashing purity seals, sometimes glued directly to vehicles. The Economist even reported that Vadim Sukharevsky, Ukraine's drone czar, has his own extensive collection of Warhammer models, a reminder that, in wartime, hobbies can blend with reality. Look, I get it. The 40K universe is strangely compelling, and soldiers need downtime and deserve a hobby. Of course, not everyone is thrilled. Russian religious journalist Alexander Soldatov criticized the use of such amulets, pointing out the uncomfortable merging of Orthodox theology with pagan combat magic. Quote, "Amulets are not typical for Orthodox tradition, yet here they are," he noted. Indeed, it seems that in this war, as far as the Russian Orthodox Church is concerned, all bets, or blessings, are off. It's worth noting that Warhammer 40K is extremely popular in both Ukraine and Russia, even though Games Workshop stopped selling its products in Russia in March of 2022 in protest of the invasion. But a hugely popular video game based on the 40K universe called Space Marine 2 just came out in September, and that game is made by a Russian developer called Saber Interactive. Ukrainian tech news site AIN claims that every purchase of the game for $59.99 funds the Russian army with almost $12 through taxation. The site has to stretch a little bit to make that connection, but if true, as of this video, Space Marine 2 has sold 4.5 million copies. That would come out to a profit of $270 million, $54 million for the Russian government through its taxation of the game's maker, Saber. Still, this fascination of Warhammer 40K on the battlefield in Ukraine doesn't look to be going away anytime soon. Keep your eyes on the battlefield to see if you can catch the 40K symbols for yourself. The 40K world is a pretty immersive universe if you like sci-fi. Now, I'm not advocating getting into the hobby because, well, first of all, it's extremely expensive, but check out some of the books if you're feeling froggy and if you love science fiction. That's it for today. Subscribe if you're not, it really helps the channel grow. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Slava Ukraini.